At this time, we'll call the August 16th, 2024 meeting of the Wilson County Planning Commission into order. Anyone wishing to give testimony before this board today, if you would, please stand and raise your right hand. I hereby affirm the testimony I give today to be the whole truth, so help me God. Say I do. Thank you. We need to approve the minutes of the July 19th meeting.
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Renfro, seconded by Ms. Weathers, to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion will carry. We have no old business. We can move straight into new business with the rezoning. Tom?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a rezoning request before you today. The applicant, Hardeep Kumar Patel, is requesting rezoning of property from A1 Agricultural Zone District to C1 Highway Commercial Zone District. And the property is further referenced as Wilson County Property Map 41, parcel 33.04 and 33.06, containing 7.36 acres more or less. Oops. Turn off my phone, I apologize.
He's closer than any of us.
The Wilson County Growth Plan nor the Wilson County Land Use Plan has any direction for this area to be commercial. The property directly across the street to the north would be zoned similarly to this request if it were to ever be rezoned. And what I'm talking about there is, this is right out at the county line going east on Carthage Highway. This is Key Stop Market, and I believe it may even be owned by the same individuals that are attempting this rezoning request. The property in this portion of the county is predominantly zoned A1 agricultural and consists of low-density residential and agricultural development patterns. Should the County Planning Commission or the County Commission ultimately decide to approve this request for rezoning, a site plan would be required at any time the property is proposed for redevelopment or addition under commercial zoning, and all commercial requirements, including permitting, paving, landscaping, building material, and public sewer provisions, would apply to the property unless variances are granted by the Board of Zoning Appeals for any of the specifically listed site plan and commercial requirements. Finally, staff members have made copies of the rezoning request available to emergency services, the utility districts, the road commission, and the school system, and we've received no negative comments or concerns regarding the rezoning request from those agencies present. Staff will note that the proposed rezoning falls within the limits of the Carthage Highway WEMA Station 8's 5-mile ISO response zone for fire and emergency services. The County Stormwater Department has requested that the applicant, Planning Commission, and other interested parties be put on notice that the presence of sinkholes, caves, wetlands, streams, and other land areas that are extremely flat, marshy, or steep may affect further development of these tracts of land. As an additional point of information, this rezoning does not appear to be in close or immediate proximity to any Century Farms based upon information provided to the Wilson County Planning Department. Staff cannot recommend rezoning of this property as there is no land use direction that calls for commercial rezonings in this area of the county. There has been no precedent for commercial zoning in this area, and short of Key Stop Market and a couple of other legacy uses back towards Lebanon or across into Smith County, which is not our zoning jurisdiction, there's no commercial activity in this area within Wilson County.
Tom, is the Key Stop not zone commercial now?
No, sir. I believe it's a legacy use. I will say A1 does have a use on appeal procedure for convenience markets, but I don't believe that it's been through the Board of Zoning Appeals.
But it's been there
Yeah.
forever. Okay. Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone here today to represent this case? Good morning. If you would state your name for the record, please.
Hardeep Kumar Patel.
Okay, thank you. What do you need to tell us, sir?
Just wanted to put this application in and see where we go from here, and just wanted to get the rezone done and out on the market over there across the street. And there's been a lot of new houses and a lot of new neighborhoods, and a lot of people moved in around surrounded. So just wanted to kind of put something more out there where they have a close convenience to either driving to Smith County or all the way to the Lebanon.
Okay. All right, thank you. Do we have anyone else here today wishing to speak on this case? Okay. At this time, we'll close the public comment section. Do we have any questions from our board?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
It's for Mr. Patel. Have you a use in mind that you're already thinking of to support this community? You stated that you had a commercial convenience for the surrounding property, which is all agriculture. This is you have a specific use that would you like to state?
Not at this moment, but if anything, we'll decide to put it there. We'll put it on before the county first and see what we
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tom, can
Yes,
you
sir.
just give me the highlights for C1 commercial again? What those might be, just off the top? Major things, not all of them.
Convenience markets, office space, dry cleaners, neighborhood scale type of
I remember now.
commercial. Dollar Generals, many of the Dollar Generals you have across the county are in C1 neighborhood zoning.
Thank you, sir.
So a Dollar General would fit that.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. Is there a parcel in between the two that is proposed to be rezoned?
Yes, sir.
And that's a house on the back of it?
I believe so, yes, sir.
It comes off the other road, I think, also, so, okay.
You're talking about this structure right here?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's on a separate parcel that goes to Carthage Highway? How come their driveway comes in a different way? What is it? Is that another road?
Connecting road.
There, actually, that, I did not see, there's not a driveway on this strip. It's a 50-foot strip that's staked out. Their driveway to access this is actually on this parcel there. I don't know if that's an old county right-of-way or another parcel that they just have an easement on.
Okay. And Tom, if you wanted to put something similar to a Dollar General there, would it be permissible on appeal in the A1 district?
Let me look. I believe it's specific to convenience markets. So convenience markets allowed using this provision must be located with direct access to an arterial or collector on the county major thoroughfare plan, which Carthage Highway would qualify. So they could go through the Board of Zoning Appeals process, and yes, we likely would consider a Dollar General a convenience market.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from our board?
Sorry.
I'm confused a little bit, Tom, if you'll educate me. Are both of the tracks what he's asking for? Or is that, if he
Yes,
is,
he's asking for this tract and for this tract.
all right, but he's got a divider that he does not own between the two, is that correct?
That's correct.
What'd you say, 6 foot?
No, it's approximately 50 to 100 foot wide.
Oh, it's
there.
a regular road right-of-way.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Okay. Any other questions from our board? Do we have a,
Widths of those lots, the street frontage width of them.
I do not have that information for you today. I know that if you assume that these are 50 foot, you're probably talking about 180, 200 foot there, and maybe 200, 250 there, just by scale.
any other questions from our board? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, we deny due to current land use plans, since they have a venue through appeals process, that it be denied.
Okay. We have a motion to deny the motion. Do we have a second? I will second that motion. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Mr. Jewell and Mr. Woods voted no. That motion will carry. They do have a right to appeal this to the county court. Is that accurate, Tom?
Yes, they would, I would suggest that they talk to their county commissioner if they wish to do so. However, if you do wish to appeal, you can appeal, but you have to appeal in writing within 10 days of the action taken by this planning commission. And if you do appeal as the applicant, then there's a 35-day waiting period, and then we follow the very same process at the county commission. There'll be a 15-day ahead of time public advertisement for a public hearing, followed by first and final reading at the county commission. The only difference being that they would be considering a negative recommendation as opposed to a positive
Okay.
from the planning commission.
Okay. The next thing on our agenda is it's for informational purposes only. Is that correct, Tom?
I believe that is correct. It is to be presented Tuesday, August 27th, 2024 at 5 p.m. in the City of Lebanon Administrative Building located at 200 Castle Heights Avenue North. This is because this particular rezoning request falls within county zoning jurisdiction, but within the City of Lebanon's planning region, meaning that their planning commission has to issue a recommendation upon it before proceeding to the county commission if it stays in the county. The application has been made by Gene Coolis requesting the rezoning of property from rural residential R1 to highway commercial C3. The property is located at 1108 Highway 109 North and contains approximately 0.8 of an acre, and is further referenced as Wilson County Map 70, Parcel 79.02. No action is required by the Wilson County Regional Planning Commission. It's just for your information.
Okay. We're ready to move into site plans and plats now.
Okay, the first site plan I have is for LETN site improvements. This is owned by a company, or the facility that is on the property is owned by a company that we've come to be known as Dyno Nobel. I believe they're based out of Salt Lake City, Utah, but they're a national blasting technology company. They have taken over operations here in the past few years from Hermitage Explosives, which you may be familiar with, that has had a facility there since prior to zoning in Wilson County in the early 1970s when they were established. This did go to the Board of Zoning Appeals yesterday and received a memorialized approval of their use. And as for the blasting operation there, they're not blasting on site. They're storing stable materials there and taking them to sites where they mix them and they become volatile for blasting purposes. The site plan meets requirements and staff recommends approval. It consists of one lot, references map 124, parcel 14.02.
Tom, what size is that lot? I watched the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting. I believe that's 140 some odd acres.
Yes, owned by the Parton family. I don't know, I think they may be doing their due diligence to purchase it from the Parton family.
Okay.
I'd say that's a quarter of a mile off the road out there.
Yeah, it's a long ways back.
Valley. It's been out there forever.
But I assume they don't have is anyone here wishing to speak on this?
Yes.
Can I ask you one question before you start? Well, certainly. This is a big parcel of land. Do y'all rent the whole parcel of land or just a part of the parcel?
We currently rent a part of the parcel, I believe 10 acres.
Okay. Please come ahead and tell us what you need to tell us, sir.
Yeah, so my name is,
So Chris Parson, Dyno Nobel, we rent the entire 145-acre parcel, but we only have developed for storage less than 4 acres of the parcel.
Okay. Please, go ahead.
yes, my name is Jeremy Nelson. I'm here on behalf of Dyno Nobel to answer any questions that you might have on this project. The purpose of it is just to improve working conditions for our employees. So, that's what we're here to do. So, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Okay. You're actually acreage used. Can you tell me approximately what that is?
4 acres.
4 acres is what you're actually using.
Conservative estimate would be 4 acres, it's less than 4 acres.
Okay.
Who he is?
When these improvements you're talking about making, are you going to get outside that box?
Not with this current plan. There's no intent with the current improvements that we're putting in place to expand beyond that.
Okay.
So-
And if they did, they would have to bring some kind of site plan or something back in at that point? Okay.
Yes, they would have to bring a site plan for future improvements, but their use more or less was a legacy use that they just were seeking memorialization of yesterday at the board.
I understand, but you're going to be using approximately 4 acres, and if anything changed, they'd have to come back in.
Yes, they would have to
That
come
was
in.
that was my question. Thank you.
We'd need to come in with site plans.
Okay. Do we have anyone else here wishing to speak on this case? Okay, we'll close the public comment section. Any questions from our board?
As a point, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned you opened the can, so I get to ask. Improve working conditions for employees, new parking lot, a break room, what, I mean, is,
So it'll be a new office building, which will be a big improvement from the old farmhouse.
thank you. Just kind of get clear in mind of what's going on.
New parking area, there's
Yeah.
There's some new-
Plant ramps, two-bathroom, office trailer.
Thank you.
And I think there's some new equipment that they've proposed in terms of hopper-type delivery methods for,
But no handling or safety issue changes or any of that that you're reviewing for
Yeah, I mean,
your material handling? It's just for
anything, it's
personnel?
it's all improvements.
So, you know, part of the proposal is,
Yeah.
a bid to store product, storing tankers.
Thank you for the clarity. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any other questions from our board? Do we have a motion? We have a motion to approve by Mr. Thompson. Second. Second by Mr. Turner. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion will carry unanimously. Thank you, sir. Ready for the sketch plat on Somerset Farms.
this is a new submittal for us. This property has been bantered about over the past few years for a number of different uses, one of which was a solar farm, was the last thing I recall that had been discussed on it. But at this point, we have a residential developer that is looking at developing this property. Just for reference, it's just south of Glade Estates subdivision off Lone Oak. And I believe it's just north of the Lanham property that has recently gotten site plan approval from you last month for industrial purposes. But they're looking at doing a residential subdivision there, and this is the sketch plat for it. It consists of 62 lots. The plat in concept meets zoning requirements for the 62-lot subdivision, and staff can recommend approval. Obviously, it's still got to go through preliminary plat approval. It's also got to submit road and drainage plans and those types of things as they move forward.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone here wishing to speak on this case today? Mr. Haddix.
Morning, Joe Haddock, CSDG. Thank you, Tom. As he mentioned, no outstanding comments. Proposing 62 lots on 76 acres. Lots of ample open space and amenity being provided for the development, meeting the new R1 cluster provision. We respectfully request your approval this morning. I can answer any questions y'all may have. There is one parcel separating this from Mr. Lanham's piece. It's the parcel that has the cell tower on it, yeah. So
Is it zoned R1 now?
it's currently R1.
Have you done your soils work?
We have done soils work.
That's a,
As shown on this plan, that was the first thing we did was soils work. Yes, sir.
yeah, that place is a little rough out there.
Yeah.
Tom, my question here would be, when the time comes, that's a terribly narrow road out there. Everybody knows that road's terribly narrow. Do we have the ability to make them upgrade that road, the length of that property?
The road commission, that authority would rest with the road commission in their review of the road plans. My understanding on one that's 62 lots, with the traffic study, it's not going to show a whole lot of necessary improvement other than potential entrance improvements. When the time comes that we get our traffic study. That being said, the minimum standard that the road commission typically has is a widening of the road, at the very least at the entrances to the subdivision, inclusive of XL and decel lanes and a center turn lane, so that people going south on Lone Oak would be able to get out of traffic and allow traffic to pass by. And as judging the future by the past, that improvement will likely occur for the most part on the development side of the road. So where they widen it will be on the development side of the road. They'll also be required to do right-of-way dedication of at least 25 feet from the center line of the road, so that the road right-of-way on that side is available for road commission improvements.
Could you guys put the original, that first slide up, back up, the one before this one? All right, now explain to me where we're at in reference.
Okay, so the industrial development that's at the corner currently of Lone Oak and Couchville Pike is about 3 parcels down. 2 parcels down is the Lanham rezoning and site plan that you recently reviewed and approved.
Yes.
And then 1 parcel below it, and I neglected to remember, is a cell tower parcel.
Oh, what's north right there? Is
And
that
then
a
north, that's Glade Estates subdivision, and they are proposing, if you go to the next slide, per our request, they are proposing to connect to Glade Estates right there. This is I believe they're, the southern one, okay. And at least one of the 2 stub outs from Glade Estates.
Okay, and what's the, have you got the acreage on this somewhere?
Yeah, I can get it.
72 acres, I think.
76, just over 76
acres.
acres. Yes, sir.
And you have 2 entrances in and out.
We're showing
out to Lone Oak Road.
2 connections to Lone Oak. As you can see, we've set the lots back from the right-of-way, anticipating a dedication and improvements to Lone Oak. So set it up for those improvements.
Okay.
What concerns me about this is it's kind of the reverse of what we've been looking at down there. I don't really care to put homes right up against that interstate right-of-way down there with all of the other industrial developments down there. My seeing is that ought to be an industrial development, not a residential development. Just the
Well,
way I look at it.
it's zoned appropriately for what they're doing. I will tell you that the current land use plan calls for it to be higher density residential in an effort to try to provide a place for possibly labor that would be serving or employed at the nearby industry. For instance, the Glade Estates subdivision just to the north of it is a higher density zoned district. It's R2. And at the time was allowed to do 10,000 square foot lot takedown for single family. But they also had the option at that time of coming in and requesting a multifamily development. They just opted to develop it in single family format. And I'm talking big picture. I'm not talking about this development, Joe. I mean,
I think the one thing that would clean that up a little bit for you, Mr. Jewell, is the Lanham property that we rezoned a few months ago, the county commission rezoned a few months ago. Its point of entrance is at its southernmost point.
I understand.
And the only road improvements, if I understand correctly, Tom, are being made to that point.
beyond right-of-way dedication.
And Lone Oak Road is no more, at best, it's a good 1-lane road.
Yes.
And this is probably 3/4 of a mile away from where he's talking about. And on this end of it, it's already has residential development.
But it's a land use issue with me. It's a land use issue with me. That area along that highway is clearly, in my view, a commercial and industrial area for development. That is ideal industrial property right there. No question about that, of where it's located.
That's
Not
at least a
5
mile off the,
It's right up against the interstate right-of-way.
it is, but it's at least a mile from Couchville Pike.
It is north and south.
Correct.
But from a standpoint of the proximity to the interstate, what we've heard here is complaining about being too close to industry. And here we are now considering plotting a larger residential development right in that area. Those other sites that are in it that are not developed will develop. They will develop, and in odds are they're going to develop industrial and commercially, in my view. That's just what I'm looking at. I'm not saying they won't credibly build something. They will. But it just confuses and mixes up the problem that we'd like to get away from. These major thoroughfares, these federal highways are clearly industrial corridors and commercial corridors. Why confuse that issue? It's just as bad to put an industry in the wrong place as it is to put these in the wrong place. That's just my thinking on it.
Okay.
I understand where you're coming from.
Okay. Do we have any other questions from our board?
The point that you made, Joe, yes, sir, sorry,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
about locale and density adjacent to the properties, they're going probably, the intent, I guess, by the developer is, and I know you can't speak to that, you like trying to read their mind, I would suppose, but to support the industry within reach of that instead of the commute? Is this kind of what the
Yes.
overall view?
So looking at this site in particular, the Glade Estates part subdivision north of us is currently an R2 zone, right? So there were discussion and a thought to request an R2 zoning designation for this piece of property, but that was not well received in some of the feedback we got early on from the residents out there. And the developer said, we can do a great project with, and meet the density. And then to Mr. Jones's point earlier, there's soils enough to support the lots as shown, nothing more.
I did not hear
I would almost accuse you of bringing dirt in, but I'm not going to.
I didn't hear the words turn lane, but are we going to give them
The minimum,
road problem?
the minimum standard, particularly in our subdivision regulations to support the road commission's policy, is anything with 50 lots or better, and the road commission sometimes will occasionally require it even for subdivision development or commercial development that's less impactful than 50 lots. But the minimum standard that they follow is at a minimum, they're going to want to see a center turn lane with XL and decel lanes out of the property, or some other provision that they feel meets that intent. For example, I don't know if you remember this, but up off of Coles Ferry Pike and Academy Road, where Coles Ferry splits off of Academy, a gentleman named Doug Myhan developed a subdivision down on the narrow part of Coles Ferry Pike. And his initial requirement was to put in the XL and decel lanes there. And he came back to him and said, hey, what if this part of Coles Ferry Pike is relatively narrow? What if I just agreed to work with the neighbors between my development and the intersection with Academy Road and widen that section on one side of the road? And that's what he did. So you could see a proposal from the developer to do some sort of widening project further down the road, but at a minimum, if they don't do that, they're going to have the center turn lane and XL and decel lanes and wider turning radiuses coming into the development.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
And in this application, based on what you're saying, Tom, the two entrances off of Lone Oak now, you would probably improve from one entrance to the other. Is that an accurate statement, Joe? You would probably have to.
Yeah, I would, just based on tapers and the widening we'd have to do at the entrances.
Yes. Okay. We have any other questions from our board?
It just makes no sense to me to utilize our prime industrial development land for residential usage. That's just my thought.
Well, that being said, the current land use plan calls for it to be residential.
I realize it does, and I don't
Yeah.
agree with the present
And
plan either.
I think the intent of it at the time was that the folks out in that area that provided input back in 2006 and then subsequently in 2017, we did our comp plan, and then subsequently when we did our growth plan hearings and our current set of land use plan update hearings, was that they did not want a migration of that additional industrial going north because they were already there residentially.
You're setting dangerous precedents, though, when you stop those industrial developments.
Right, but we're also trying to make sure that there's buffer between the south end of their property and the commercial development that's there. That's all we can do, given that he's not even asking for rezoning to what the current land use plan would allow him to go to. He's just trying to exercise his use by right. But I understand what you're saying,
Yeah, I'm
and
not-
that's why we're doing the land use plan update right now.
Whatever this board votes is what we'll do. But
Yeah.
that's my personal feeling. That I just feel like that these I-40, 840, all of these corridors, we are an incredible area for distribution. Everybody kicks distribution. It's one of the most versatile industries there is, because everything has to be moved. If one company moves out, there's going to be somebody else to come in for distribution. We're not talking about building cars and steel bands and chemicals. We're talking about distribution, and that's what this area is for. That's what was all designed and set up for. And I hate to see it used improperly like that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Joe. You wanted to speak, sir? If you would, please come forward.
You want to pass it on down?
I'm Donnie Dowell, and I live at Underwood Road. And so to the north, that subdivision to the north, when you get to the property under consideration,
Go back to the previous.
it goes essentially, Tom, from 2 lanes to 1 lane. The road has been approved to right there.
Yes.
And then it goes to 1 lane. So we're talking about improving it on south.
At the very least, in the approaches and exits from the development, yes.
Okay. And to address Mr. Jewell's concern,
It'll also have this connection here, Mr. Dowling.
yeah, okay, I got you. And so his concern about homes up against the 840, well, to the north of there is already a number of homes right up next to 840. So that's, all they're doing is extending the subdivision that far. And if you put a commercial development in there, and if you tried to head south on Lone Oak, that's a no-brainer. It's just essentially a one-lane road, and no way a truck should be on that. And if you head north, the roads are not situated as such to address commercial traffic. So what the man is proposing to do is consistent with what's north of there and consistent with what the roads will handle. So I would think that would be a good use of that property, and I would hope you would approve it.
Thank you, sir.
I could argue that point, but I won't. I won't argue that point. It's a moot point. It is a no-brainer, though, I agree.
Any other questions from our board?
Just a statement, as my colleague probably was expecting this. So your precedent is your opinion. Mine is that we're telling the community that we also are concerned about residents, their homes, and what's going on. I hear you about the corridor, but it's already been established down through there. And at current land use plans, my opinion is that this is a good step and a precedent that shows the community we're looking out for their interests too.
It has already been established industrially. It's incredible what's down there in that road.
2 lots down.
Well, I know, but the thing about it is it has, and it's greater good. Greater good is what we're talking about here. Long-term greater good. God.
Well, this is greater good,
Okay.
folks. So.
Okay, okay. If there's, please, quickly, please. Yes, sir.
Tom, is there some restriction on the size of houses that can be built in there?
We don't have the ability to control that at all, sir. We can't even take it into consideration.
So I'm thinking, the mess they have at 109 and Franklin Road,
Are you talking about the subdivision that was at least periodically vacated?
yeah.
Yeah.
So could something like that go in here?
Yes. I mean,
Good?
yes. I don't have any way to stop. What that was initially envisioned, as I understand it, and that was not in our jurisdiction, I was in the city of Lebanon's, but we do have some of these that I'm about to mention. There are such thing as rental communities from their inception, meaning that some company comes in and they build houses with the intent of them being rental, single-family detached structures in lieu of attached apartment complex type concept. And they can build that and rent that, and there's nothing we can do, to my knowledge, that doesn't violate the Fair Housing Act in some form or fashion. There are some things you can do to, adopt different standards and things like that, but it has to be for all development. It can't just be for something that's pointed at those rental communities. Mike, would you like to weigh in on that one?
So nowhere along the process can we keep, so theoretically, they could put those kind of homes in there, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Saying?
Yes, sir, they could. And if they, as long as they meet the subdivision regulations and the zoning requirements, probably one of the things that protects us out in the county is that the lot size that we have at this point, minimum 1 acre lot density, they being, and I'm not a businessman, but they would have a hard time getting a pro forma to work easily. Although we do have a few rental communities in the county jurisdiction
I understand,
already.
but nothing like to have.
Yeah.
109. And
That's correct.
And so the restriction is 1 acre lots, is that what you're saying?
Well, it's 1 acre lot density. I believe they're doing a cluster
This is
provision.
cluster.
Which means, well, how that works is they take the total acreage, you take 25% of that total acreage off the top, and then you multiply in the minimum lot size, which is 40,000 square feet for R1, and that's how many lots you get at a max. So,
How many homes do you intend to build on that?
62.
You have any idea?
62 lots.
62 lots. So that's 24 cars, you'd say, 2 cars to the house? You know, people get a little bit misunderstanding. They think there's going to be a lot of traffic with the industry. Depends on what kind of industry it is. Wait till you get a large number of residential cars and vehicles coming and going if traffic is your main concern, because it can be a real problem. And let's talk about schools.
Yeah.
And let's talk about taxis, and I mean, there's a lot of things to discuss. That's all I.
And Donnie, or Mr. Dallin, we cannot do anything that dictates property value in particular, or value of property, by Fair Housing Act restrictions.
No, I realize that.
However, we do have PUDs, if they were of a mind to rezone, planned unit development, where we can get some minimum house square footage requirements, things like that, that may indirectly affect house value, but not necessarily. But that would entail a rezoning, which they're not exercising.
It would be interesting to see what the industrial or heavy commercial tax bill would be on that property as opposed to those numbers of homes. It might be more, it might be less, but it certainly would be interesting to see what that was.
Any other questions from our board? I'll call for a motion.
Based on staff recommendations and zoning requirements currently, I move we approve.
I have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second by Mr. Noakes. Mr. Renfro made the initial motion. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. And those opposed?
No.
Did you vote? That motion will carry 8-2. Mr. Jewell and Mr. Turner voted no.
I did too.
I'm sorry.
You did too?
That motion will pass 7-3 with Mr. Jewell, Mr. Ash, and Mr. Turner voting no. Okay, we're now ready for the preliminary for early estates.
Mr. Chairman, this is back before you at my request. This is a preliminary plat for early estates. You've already approved a preliminary plat for early estates. I'm going to point it out since it didn't highlight. This is the parcel we're referring to. Can you move to the next slide? The previous rendition of this that you approved at preliminary plat had exits off of Underwood in addition to Stewart's Ferry. They have reduced their access to a singular point, and I felt as though that was significant enough of a change that you guys at least needed to look at it. I cannot say it does not meet subdivision regs. It does. However, the mailbox kiosk driveways need to be relocated further away from the Stewart's Ferry Pike right-of-way. The plat has been revised, as I stated, to one entrance instead of the 3 previously approved entrances. The plat does meet zoning and subdivision requirements otherwise, but this in particular, I've stated to the applicant through my staff on several occasions that I'm concerned about where they're placing their mail kiosk. The road commission typically requires that the mail kiosk have its own parking area and everything else that's off of their right-of-way. And as such, I don't know if we've got the detail, it's on one of the other pages, but it's got a loop driveway in it that you park and go into the mail kiosk and then go back around. But this is literally right inside the turn-in off of Stewart's Ferry Pike, and at the speed that people are traveling, particularly given the improvements that will be made, like we just talked about with regard to the XL and decel lane and the center turn lane, I'm concerned that you're setting up for somebody to get rear-ended pretty easily there, trying to pull into the mail kiosk. And my submittal would be, or my concern would be that we, and talking with my other staff members, we feel as though that mail kiosk needs to be moved somewhere at least down in here between these first two lots or something to give some cue and some time for people to react when they're pulling into the neighborhood.
Okay. Tom, did the number of lots change?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay. Okay. Who's here to represent this case today, sir? Please come forward, state your name for the record.
Yes, sir. Mike Shamsey with Landmark Engineering Group.
Okay. Okay. What do you need to tell us today, sir?
Okay, you've been talking about the county commission, the highway commission's requirements for subdivisions and the roadway improvements. Their current standard is they want 3 lanes, center lane completely through. And if we had entrances on Underwood, we'd have to improve that entire roadway section for 3 lanes and 3 lanes on the northerly road. They have a major problem at the intersection. We don't border the intersection. And so in compromise, we are improving the intersection, replacing culverts, putting turn lanes for trucks that are coming through there, not our traffic. And so we have negotiated with Steve and Chase over there at the Highway Commission to do improvements on, what's the northerly road?
Stewart's Ferry.
Stewart's Ferry Pike.
Thank you. So I don't live here in Tennessee, so I live in Illinois and Louisiana, so, but I'm over here a lot. Okay, so we're doing a major improvement on Stewart's Ferry, 3 lanes, turn lane into the subdivision, left turn and right turns. And then at the intersection, we're putting left turn lanes off of Stewart's Ferry to onto Underwood and out of Underwood onto Stewart's Ferry because they have so much truck traffic that trucks are having problems moving through there. So that's the reason for the reduction in our entrances. If we had to improve all the way down Underwood and Stewart's Ferry all the way to the east, and there's a box culvert over there, it was $2 million of off-site improvements. And for 48 lots, it just wasn't feasible. So that's the negotiations we've had with the County Highway Commission. And then as far as with the mail kiosk, I have had conversations with Chase, and he wants us to move the right entrance into the kiosk, just move it in a little further and make one entrance on the south side of the kiosk. It can stay there according to him, and he's okay with it like that. So that's the summary of everything. We changed the whole design, still got 48 lots, still got the drip field system, still going to pump our sewage to Dennis's plant, and all the lots are the same, 48.
Thank you, sir. Did the original approval, the plat, Tom, did it have 2 entrances on Stewart's Ferry? I remember 2 on Stewart's Ferry and 1 on Underwood, but have I got that backwards?
Vice versa.
Okay, it was 2 on Underwood and 1 on Stewart's Ferry.
Correct.
Okay. Do we have anybody here from the Road Commission today?
We do have a subdivision regulation or a zoning requirement, I think. Yeah, there's a zoning requirement that they be at least 30 feet off of the intersection. And then if they've got a secondary entrance, for instance, to the mail kiosk, that's got to be an additional 50 feet away. And we feel like between the 2 of those standards, it dictates pushing that mail kiosk further into the neighborhood. And my concern, regardless of what the regs say, is about traffic safety here, because Stewart's Ferry is a high traffic corridor. People turning into this neighborhood, particularly if it's a singular entrance in and out of the neighborhood, I'm concerned about and we do have requirements at this point, as you know, for 99 lots or better subdivisions that went into effect, I think, in late 2022. This doesn't have 99 lots, so it doesn't meet that criterion. So I can tell you that what they've proposed does meet the sub-regs. I do have some concerns about the mail kiosk.
Okay.
And it is different than what you approved last time, so I felt it was better to have y'all relook at it.
I agree, and I appreciate that. Do you have any, did the Road Commission send you any letter telling them what they had agreed to? Do we have anything on that, Christopher?
I don't have anything in writing from the Road Commission, but they would typically have that as part of the construction documents, and still hand us before we get pre-con.
Okay.
Because it's a preliminary plat, and typically road and drainage plans occur between preliminary and final.
So to give you a little history, after we came to Plan Commission last time, we did our entire site plans, submit them, and then we found out we had to go to the Highway Commission. I still can't understand why a Highway Commission's not here on preliminary plat review. So we're all, I can understand that. I mean, I work in 21 states, so I'm an engineer in 21 states, and this is the only one I've ever seen with a Highway Commission. When you got off-site roadway, you got traffic issues, why they're not here at the table. So then we go meet with them after we're all done, and this whole 3-lane roadway section comes up and just throws a wrench into everything. And so then we go back to redesign. We spend a lot of money on redesign, you know, to come back with another plan and work with the Highway Commission. I'm still in.
The wrench you're referring to is the fact that this is not within your subdivision, this corner? Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm referring to when we came to Plan Commission, and we got a letter from you on the review, Tom, it says to put turn lanes in. So our plan had turn lanes in it for entrances, at the entrance. Then we spend $100,000 designing the whole subdivision, stormwater, everything. We're ready for submittal. And then we find out, well, the Highway Commissioner, they have a different idea of what's going to happen here. And so then we have to go sit down with them. And then they said, well, you're not going to be able to do that. Here's what you're going to do. The whole section and the 3-lane doesn't taper at the end of the property line. The 3-lane was going to stop at the property line. Then you're going to taper further in 3 different directions. So you can see this improvement gets really expensive. And so then that's, in the 11th hour, we find out this information because they're not here at the table. And we would have known that from the beginning, it would have been a lot better for the applicant. So.
Fair enough. Okay. Thank you, sir.
And then the mail kiosk, I think our mail kiosk is more than what the regs require. And so then the parking area.
You do understand his concern?
Yeah, I understand his concern. In the parking area, the Highway Commission wants parking. They don't want them parking on the road to get to the mail kiosk. So you can see we're dealing with back and forth. So, and we're willing to get it solved. That's not a problem. Solving the mail kiosk is small.
It's clear to us that they don't want the parking on the road right away, and that's what they've been asked to design from us and them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Do we have anyone else here today wishing to speak on this case? Please come forward and state your name for the record, please.
Nathan Ledbetter, and I represent the developer of the site. And so I just want to kind of share Mike's frustrations about the changes that we're required to do after we submitted back in December. And I just want to point out, you know, that we are going above what the subdivision regulations trigger for any type of turn lanes or road improvements. And, you know, so we're going to be putting a substantial amount of money into the Underwood and Stewart's Ferry intersection. And so kind of focused, I kind of want to get onto the mail kiosk, and maybe that's kind of something we can work on, because we have several neighborhoods where the kiosk is in the front of the neighborhood, and that is probably the most convenient place for people that are coming and going. They see the mailbox and they're like, I go in and get my mail, and we're going to make it look, you know, this is going to be, you know, 1.2, 1 and up, you know, neighborhood. So it's going to look good, and we're going to tie it to the entrance. And so we're going to try and kind of treat it like an amenity somewhat for the neighborhood. And so it's going to kind of stand out when you drive down Stewart's Ferry. And also, you know, most people aren't going to want that in their front yard. You know, I mean, you're basically asking us to move it into the neighborhood and possibly lose a lot, you know, a property, and which again is, you know, loss of revenues and tax dollars. And I'm just asking that, you know, because we're going to have a decel lane and a turn lane, so it's not like people are going to be just hauling butt down Stewart's Ferry and turning into the neighborhood. They're actually going to have a decel lane, and they're going to have a turn lane. So I think there's going to be plenty of visibility to see if somebody's turning in there, because it's going to be, I mean, it's going to be right in the entrance. And we're talking about 48 lots, so we're not talking about hundreds of people trying to get their mail every day. And you know, most people, I live in a neighborhood with a cluster box. They take their dogs and they actually walk to the, you know, to the mail kiosk and get their mail, and it's just some you know, place to do. So some people will drive and some people will walk, and so that's the only thing I'm trying to, you know, maybe hopefully work on. And if we can get the entrance down, to subdivision regulations, I'm hoping that will satisfy you guys. But moving it into the neighborhood will not be great because, again, it's going to be either be in somebody's yard or we're going to have to lose a property because it's a substantial, parking lot to get in and out. So that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir?
We did submit the site improvement plans for the roadway portion to the county, and were approved already. And I think they might even sent the email to Tom. Tom might have been copied on it. So our roadway off-site improvement plans are approved.
Okay.
And then we'll be ready to submit after this.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here wishing to speak on this case today? Okay. We will close the public comment section. Any questions from our board? Mr. Thompson?
I've got a question. Tom,
Yes, sir.
what action, to meet your concerns, what action would you want the planning, or
Well, the subdivision meets subdivision regulations in large part. My one concern is a practical concern about the location of the mail kiosk against the singular entrance for 62 lots directly adjacent Stewart's Ferry. I would like for them, whether or not they lose a lot, which is not really respectfully our issue, it's the developer's issue as to whether or not they lose a lot. Whether or not they lose that lot, we want this to be designed adequately that somebody's not necessarily getting at risk of being rear-ended by a teenager pulling into the neighborhood and not paying attention, just as an example. Because they're stopping to slow down to pull into the mail kiosk. And on Stewart's Ferry, meanwhile, they're slowing down from going 45, 55 miles an hour into the decel lane and turning in.
Okay. Mr. Ash?
Well, a planner, I counted them 4 times, brought up the safety problem there, in his opinion, professional opinion. And if we do this, and we have that first rear end, somebody may be held accountable for all that, because we have rung the bell here, you have, Tom, 4 times.
Yes, sir.
So it concerns me that maybe we might want to be working closer with the road commission and to give the developer and everybody a little breathing room on this right here, and maybe come in here and tell us, the chairman's here, but he doesn't run the everyday part of it. But
I will respond a little bit to that. We do work well with the road commission. Some of the back and forth or whatever, we actually adopted into our subregs their minimum standard, which is that center turn lane and decel and XL lanes, so that we would be consistent with them. Now, on a site-specific issue that comes up, for instance, on Underwood, if they were going to have the entrances on there and them wanting to see something a little bit different, the road commission has that purview, and I do not think it's my place to take that away from them, to say this would be better rather than having 2 separate entrances with separate XL, decel, and center turn lanes and going back down to a bottleneck, making them go on and widen all of it. That's their purview.
do we ever consult with the Postal Service when we're doing these things?
We have, mail kiosks, as you may be aware, were mandated to us by the U.S. Postal Service with no details on the design. They just said you have to have a mail kiosk. They are migrating away from individual mailboxes for new residential development nationwide.
Well, their carrier who's delivering the mail could be in jeopardy here just as well as a citizen.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me make sure I understand. The location of the kiosk, is it coming down to lot 47? Is that where it's being moved to? That's what this map here, the changes here.
It's just
show.
above the top lot on this side of the road. And there's a blow-up. I sent, I believe, a copy of the plat down the line for y'all to see that's got a larger copy of where it's at, so you can kind of see a little bit more carefully what distances we're talking about. You're going around a curve, and if somebody wants to stop and get their mail right as they come in the entrance, they're
Yeah, I
actually
understand.
doing almost a U-turn.
I see that where it is on here, but
Yes.
you want them to change, you want to move that location.
I would like them to move that a little further south to allow some queuing once you make the turn.
Okay.
for people that might be turning in to get their mail on their way home.
So what have you two resolved as to where that location is?
We haven't. In our revisions that we've gotten, it's in the same place.
So what we approved today is subject to staff recommendations, and you'll have to come back before us with that being moved somewhere, so we'll see where that is.
Yes, this is a preliminary plat, and that's an important.
That's right.
Important point to make. They will have to go through road and drainage approvals, and that we'll have other opportunities to negotiate this out. That you've got to approve a final plat before they can sell lots. And get lots recorded and sell them.
So we really
Still got
don't know,
leverage.
we really can't say today precisely where that kiosk is. We're just approving it with the understanding it will be moved.
If we make that part of our,
Our motion,
absolutely.
yes.
If we just voted straight up, we would be approving a plat as drawn.
Do what now?
We would be approving it as drawn.
As
If we
drawn.
could stipulate that.
So it needs to be approved, subject to staff recommendations, so that can be changed.
Yes, I mean, that could certainly be part of a motion.
Yes,
Needs to be in the motion itself.
yes, it does.
Okay, do we have any other questions from our board? Yes, sir, Mr. Renfro.
As I'm affectionately known, the new guy, I have a new guy question for my colleagues at the end down there, and to their point. And I haven't heard it mentioned yet, but Commissioner Ash usually brings this up, and that is, what about this single entrance? If it happens to be blocked, somebody turns in with their U-Haul, it stops. Am I to understand there's only one entrance that will allow health and welfare, safety, ambulance, and fire have to stop off this road?
That's correct, and our subdivision regulation that we have that addresses that issue really only takes effect after 99 lots, and then only for new development that's been proposed after adoption of that.
Aren't these people concerned with their health and welfare as well? I mean, rhetorically. So there's another point that I'm concerned about, not just the kiosks. I think traffic is key for safety, but what about the guy in that lot down in the corner down here that just happened to have heart palpitations and he needs help, and he can't get that in there? So not my original idea, it's my colleagues, and I don't speak for them, but that's a concern that this board should consider.
You did not make a recommendation on this one, did you, Tom?
He recommended it.
Yeah, I mean, it meets subregs. The one entrance is allowable under our current subregs at this scale.
Court can win that one.
Do we have anyone else here today wish to speak? Okay, and we've closed the public comment. Do we have any more questions for their engineer? Okay. All right, if we have no more questions, I'll call for a motion.
I'm not sure what the motion, Mr. Chairman. I don't see go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mayor Hutto.
And Tom, if I understand it right, and Sheriff, to your comment, we pulled in the road commission, school superintendent, and WEMA this last week. Because many times we've heard in this conversation in here, Daniel Cowan was in there, that we've sent this stuff to these departments, but we've had no negative comment. And many of us in here think, well, that means they just haven't responded. Did they get it? Did they see it? We don't know if they did or not. So we addressed all that with them, and they said, here's the deal. Jeff Luttrell said, when you let us know that you got a subdivision going in, I can't deny that. That's a public right. I got to educate the people that come to this county. I can't tell you, you can't have it. So, but he says, but I do take you and note that and put that in our 5-year plan. So we're planning for that. Thank you. Daniel Cowan said, guarantee if you got a problem, I'll let you know it. And he's made that, and he said, I'm always there. Joy Cooper backed that up. Steve Murphy said, you know my regulations, and when I get that, if I see any changes that need to be made, I'll be sure and let you know that as well. So in this case here, I talked to these folks as well because they were caught off guard because they didn't have a chance to hear from the road commission as soon as they wanted to hear before their planning, and they've worked that out. But all that got passed and planned, and they made that decision of what they want to do. The only reason we've got this back in front of us today is because the road commission says, we don't care where you put the mailbox, because that don't really matter to them. It matters to you where this is at, and you brought this in front just like
Or the
sheriff said.
subregs and the zoning ordinance.
That's right. So this is a planning issue, and so what you would like to see us do is recommend that this is moved back to a lot and
create this and take away the safety issue. Because it's already been, the ship has already sailed, really. You brought it back to us because you said, hey, look, this is a safety problem.
I brought it back to you for that reason, and also because it was a significant diversion from what they initially proposed.
Right, because
going from
they had
3
to-
entrances to 1.
And they had the 2 entrances there, and that was costly. So they said, hey, let's don't do that. And again, the road commission then said there are 2 entrances here. Instead of a decel and turning lane here, that close together, let's make them widen the whole thing. And we've had that conversation. They said, hey, let's don't do that. We're going to regroup. So really, what we've got in front of us here is simply, you make a recommendation really to us and bring it to our attention that mailbox ought to be moved for safety reasons.
Yes.
That should be our motion today, to approve this plat with the movement of the mailbox. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Is that a motion you are making, sir?
I'm just making a statement. I'll let somebody.
Well said.
I'll move we approve this, subject to the changing of the kiosk location.
Second.
That, let me continue to say, and that relocation is agreed on by our planner.
We have a motion from Mr. Jewell to approve the plat based on staff recommendations of them finding a common ground to relocate the mail kiosk.
That is correct.
Between the developer and the planning office.
The day that I see it.
We have a second by Mr. Woods. Your second still good, sir?
Yes.
We have a second. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Those opposed, I'll vote no.
Well, of course you would.
It has nothing to do with the mailbox kiosk. So that motion will carry. Thank you, sir.
All right.
We're ready for the final for the Legardo Utility District, Tom?
The Legardo Utility District?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is a 3-lot subdivision for the old Legardo Utility District property where their old office used to be that's been removed. This is 355 and 451 Woods Ferry Road are the address, and map 27, parcels 16, 17, and 25. With minor technical corrections, staff can recommend approval of the re-subdivision of the property.
We have anyone here to represent this case today?
You may recall there was a site plan approved for a Dollar General. And they're going back and forth with the state of Tennessee and some of their entrance requirements. But in the back, they needed to modify the property line for where the Dollar General was going. Right.
Okay. Do we have anyone else here today wishing to speak on this case? Do we have any questions from our board?
No, sir.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve by Ms. Weathers, second by Mr. Woods. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Those opposed, that motion will carry. We are ready for the final for Hawthorne Valley Phase 3.
Mr. Chairman, I have Hawthorne Valley Phase 3. This consists of 76 lots. The parcel you see before you actually includes Phase 2, which at this point has been approved with the recent court action that overturned a denial that the Planning Commission made. And it includes Phase 3, which I think is, for the most part, down in this central and southern portion of the parcel. Can you go to the next slide? So the plat does meet subdivision requirements, and staff can recommend approval. Again, it's our assessment that this will complete the preliminary plat that was approved in early 2022 for an additional 156 lots in total between phases 2 and 3. So phase 2 that got approved by court action is, or as a result of court action, is 80 lots, and this is the remaining 76 lots. I think I got that right.
Okay. Do we have anyone here today to represent this case? To actually represent the case? Okay. Please, I'm going to let you come forward first. Okay. There's more of them than there are you, so.
Good morning, Kyle Griffin, CSDG, 2305 Klein Avenue. I just have a few remarks. Back in May 20th, 2022, the Planning Commission approved the preliminary plat for Hawthorne Valley Phases 2 and 3. The preliminary plat met all the requirements of the subdivision regulations and was approved subject to the developer's ability to add a turn lane on Central Pike into the subdivision. The developer then worked for almost a year with staff and TDOT and have engineered and designed those turn lanes. TDOT approved those turn lanes on Central Pike. The final plat for Hawthorne Valley Phase 3 meets all the requirements of the subdivision regulations and meets the conditions of approval that was placed on the preliminary plat. The sewer system has been approved. The road commission has approved the roads. Stormwater department has approved. GUD has approved the water line systems. TDEC has approved all the plans, and TDOT has approved the turn lanes. All requirements have been met. LGI is committed to being a good neighbor to the existing homeowners. And just recently, we've also committed to adding some reduced traffic signs throughout the community to keep construction speeds down to a minimum. And we are planning on forcing our staging further into the site, so it's not right at the entrance to Phases 2 and Phase 3. Wilson County, I know this is going to come up later about the one access, one entrance. Wilson County subdivision regulations expressly excludes this subdivision from requiring a second entrance. The two entrance requirement does not apply to any preliminary plat approved prior to August 19th, 2022. This pre-plat was approved in May of 2022. I'd be happy to answer any additional comments or questions that you may have. Thank you.
I do have one question. Do y'all have on-site soils treatment, or is your waste being taken to another location?
It is going into the Adena system, but we have purchased soils from other communities for this development.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Now, anyone else wishing to speak on this case today? If you would, please come forward and state your name for the record.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nate Van Atta. I'm a resident of Hawthorne Valley, 405 Boulder Creek Court. I'd like to start by thanking you for the time. Thank you for hearing our safety concerns, and thank you for voting in our favor last spring, although that has been overturned. Our biggest concern is the safety of our community and the congestion that this is going to bring to our neighborhood and the current infrastructure that we have. Our neighborhood has no sidewalks, no streetlights, no speed bumps, no stop signs. If you look between the entrance from Central Pike to where you would turn onto Archwood Valley, there are no stop signs. That's a quarter-mile stretch that is all downhill at a 12% grade. No sidewalks. The approved Phase 2 is going to bring 80 new homes. That's approximately 160 new cars coming into that infrastructure every day. Not to mention the delivery vehicles, buses, et cetera, that are coming with that. Approving Phase 3 would bring an additional 160 cars. That's 4 times the amount of traffic on that tiny little stretch of road. You can imagine 4 times the amount of traffic happening, increasing outside of your homes, you understand. That gives our community no place to travel on foot, no place to walk our dogs, no place for our kids to travel between houses. The biggest issue, though, is emergency services. We've all had to rely on it at one point or another, and it's a traumatic time. We've got elderly neighbors who still enjoy the freedom to be able to live in their own homes that have to rely on emergency services. And one entrance to this community, regardless of whether it was approved 2 months before or 2 months after, no loophole or grandfathering in should supersede the safety of our community. And those elderly people in our community that need to rely on emergency services, a few minutes matter. And if there is an accident at the front of our community and they can't turn in, that's a problem. We're not talking about what just a simple traffic jam is going to do. And I appreciate the turn lane being accommodated and approved, but that does nothing for the traffic inside of our development. That gets us in safely, but then what? So I appreciate y'all listening to what we were saying here today, but our community is made up of everyday folks. We don't have the money and the power to fight this. We rely on y'all to help us. So I'm asking for that help for the safety of our community. We're not asking to stop this development. We want our community to grow. We want it to be done safely with more than one entrance, and that's what we're here asking for today. So I want you to please think about the fact that this decision in overturning the outcome last year puts us at an increased risk. Approving this today doubles that risk. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak on this case? Yes, sir. Please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Thomas Kern. I live at 114 Hawthorne Valley. I'm the longest tenured resident of the neighborhood, having moved in July 2008 when the development first started. We knew additional development was coming, and we knew that was okay. The issue we have right now, as Nate just said, we have a quarter mile from the entrance of the neighborhood to the turnoff to the new development. A quarter mile. Within that quarter mile, we have 4 cul-de-sacs. We have 42 existing homes, and now, as Nate said, they want to quintuple the number of homes available there, going from 42 to roughly 200. We have a very walkable neighborhood right now on our streets. We don't have sidewalks, we don't have street lights, but we have a lot of folks who walk, run, walk their pets, kids play, etc. It's a very nice neighborhood. Currently, children have to wait at the curb for their school buses. We have anywhere from 4 to 6 school buses every weekday, in the morning picking the kids up, and then in the afternoon taking the kids back home. We also have multiple trash collection companies coming in weekly with multiple trucks for regular trash and then recycled trash. We also have the various delivery trucks, UPS, DHL, FedEx, etc., coming into the neighborhood on a regular basis. I wish it was one FedEx truck a day with packages for all the neighbors, but I got to tell you, I can look out my window and I can see 2 or 3 FedEx trucks at a time. That's not how it works these days. We have a lot of traffic. We also have lawn service trucks with their trailers and their equipment. They unload to cut yards. We also have Middle Tennessee Electric maintaining the electric lines through the new development as well, all the way down to the SEP system. We have the Gladeville Utility Department for water. They come out all the time, testing the fire hydrants, if nothing else. We have Adinas for the SEP system coming out, looking at the SEP system. We have Middle Tennessee Natural Gas, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have traffic. We have a lot of safety concerns because of the traffic. If you haven't been to the neighborhood, I want to invite you to come out and look at it. It's just a quarter mile from the entrance to the new development. When you come in the neighborhood, there's a hill at the very start. You come in, you're going down the hill. You can stop at the entrance of the neighborhood and you can coast down that hill. The speed limit is 25 miles an hour. By the time you coast down there, I know from personal experience, you're going to be going 45 miles an hour at the bottom of the hill. It's fast, and that's unless you're riding your brakes. Okay? And now we're going to have construction traffic coming in. We're going to have people coming into the neighborhood are new to the area. They're not familiar with the streets. They're not familiar with the hill. And they're going to go too fast down that hill. So I ask that you say no to the proposed development unless a separate construction entrance is obtained, as this is a safety issue for the Hawthorne Valley residents, their children, their pets, and their property. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak on this case today?
Hello. My name is Caitlin Noel, and I'm also here to discuss the Phase 3 of Hawthorne Valley. New developments equal longer bus routes for our children. Kids in our community that attend Gladeville Elementary are getting on the bus at 6:15 in the morning, and they're on that bus for 50 minutes in the morning and 50 minutes in the afternoon. Adding these new homes will increase the already extremely long time they're on the bus, plus continue to put a strain on our school systems, which are already at maximum enrollments. I understand there's a new elementary school being built, but what about a middle school? We're already growing ourselves before they're even built. Phase 2 was already approved, which will add a strain on the children's ride time, school systems, and Central Pike traffic. Phase 3 also needs no hesitation to be denied. Central Pike is dangerous. Our Maid Road, Hawthorne Valley, which you've heard is very dangerous, adding those additional cars. And driving at 35 miles per hour on Central Pike, and let's be honest, no one is driving 35 miles an hour on Central Pike, coming up a blind hill into a 12-degree slope down into our Hawthorne Valley development is just it's asking for devastation, especially during the winter times and heavy traffic. If you don't know Central Pike very well and you're flying, who knows whose home you can run into at that entrance. It all comes down to money, and it comes down to greed from the developers, and we have to put a stop to it. You may be asking yourself, how would we win this third phase if we lost the second, and what has changed? And the answer is a lot has changed. 200-plus homes has changed. Adding a dangerous slope into our main entrance has changed. Children's lengthy bus rides will also get longer, and more importantly, adding that many lots with one single entrance and exit has also changed. And also, why wouldn't we want to fight for this? We need to fight for our safety. Developers from Texas, or who knows where they're coming from, they haven't lived here. They come into our community. They spend all this money, and they make it dangerous and for us to figure out when they leave town. So I'm just praying today that you do what's morally correct, not help only not us, but the families who don't even know the dangers of what they're up for. If they live in a place without easy access to a main road or emergency services, reaching out to them when they need the most. Exactly what you, Mr. Renfro, was talking about earlier. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak on this case today? Yes, ma'am.
Pretty much, before they painted it red. Stripes.
Good morning. My name's Marion Maxwell, and I live on Harkreader Road. This property adjoins my property. I spoke at the last meeting, at which we know the ultimate result of that. I still have the same concerns. Now, the safety issue of the one entrance is outside my purview. But I do have some other interest in this. Environmental interest to the Anthony Branch. Anthony Branch runs along the edge of this property, and then it runs along my property. It ultimately ends up at Suggs Creek. Now, I haven't seen or heard any environmental studies for this property. So there's a concern right there. Anthony Branch can become a roaring creek and flood not only my bottom, but the folks across Harkreader Road, severely flooding their bottom land, where the little horses are. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's to give you an idea where our property is. Also, in the back side of my property, also adjoining this, there's a wet weather spring creek that comes through there, also subject to flooding. It won't perk because of the drainage is so poor. Runs across our property to the folks next to us, and once again ends up across Harkreader Road, getting those little horses' feet wet a lot. Okay, environmental concern number 2. How's the drainage working here? Also, once said development gets rolling, we live in Wilson County, blasting. Very concerned with the blasting and its effect on our foundations and other structures. We've been in our home almost 40 years. I know about blasting in our area. So there's another concern. I would like to, I don't know what the steps are to put seismic measuring when that day comes, to measure exactly the impact of the blasting. I also heard, and I doubly, I agree with the I feel so sorry for those people in Hawthorne Valley if they have to have one entrance, not only for residential traffic, but construction. Oh my goodness. I mean, you can make a mint running a dump truck these days in Wilson County. I just can't even fathom that. I totally agree with their request for a construction entrance. I think that would be a wise decision on your part. There's no need for construction equipment and whatever else construction traffic would bring down that one lovely Hawthorne Valley Road. From prior discussions today, there's some other issues that relate to this project as well, the same issues. The road commission requirements, which obviously they've been satisfied per the developer. I don't get it, but hopefully they do have the deceleration, acceleration, and the center turn lane. I hope that's what that was agreed upon. And the single entrance for public safety, really, I do know that access to water, Gladeville Utility, they want that in case one end gets clogged up. They can try to get it on the other end. But yeah, it's just common sense, folks. You know, one way in, one way out on a steep grade, not a good idea. So I stand here to enforce with the residents of Hawthorne Valley to oppose this development. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak today on this case?
All right, my name is Shank Kotare. I am residing at 117 Hawthorne Valley. I have lived in that subdivision since 2012. And Commissioner Renfro actually made my case. Adding all these homes, where are we going to get emergency services to them? Point number one. Point number two, I'm an empty nester. But what I love about subdivision living in our area, especially in Wilson County, is kids can freely play on the road without having to worry about people speeding. Let me tell you, if someone speeds, they get an email from people, hey, no, I have not received an email. But these are facts. You know, I love coming in and seeing all these kids playing. It forces people to slow down if you love kids. And this is a family subdivision. When you add all these homes, people before me have made the case. Where's the traffic? Who's going to maintain that? Central Pike doesn't even have a turn lane. And at this point, I don't think there's a plan to add a turn lane to that.
There is a plan to add a turn lane on Central Pike. That is correct, isn't it, Mr. Griffin?
It's going to be constructed with the Phase 2 that's about to start construction.
Well, I canceled that point of mine. But this is a fact. You know, as I said, I'm here because the subdivision needs to be safe. Emergency vehicles reaching our residents, it's going to be tough. And as Tom mentioned before, please, you know, drive around Central Pike, see what that road is. Drive around there when there's school traffic. See how that is. And let's keep Wilson County and Mount Juliet what it is, family-friendly and healthy.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Lori Dalton, and I actually am the HOA manager for this property. And I do their inspections. And I shared this the last time, and we still haven't had anyone to come out and look. The road, due to the grade-in and due to the water runoff, has cracks in it already, just from the delivery vehicles and everything else that's coming in. And these cracks, we, as an HOA, have paid to have those repaired because we couldn't get anyone to come out. And my understanding is these roads are supposed to be public roads, and that's why, you were going to let them go ahead and come in. But you guys have got to get out there and make some repairs to these roads. The cracks are large, and the water just runs right through them because the drainage is so bad. And again, it goes back not just to the damage it's going to do to the roads that you guys are supposed to maintain. So we're asking for that as well, a separate entry for them, for the safety of our kids. And again, I've been there. I've been doing inspections. I was coming down the road. Federal Express was coming up, UPS, and I literally had to pull over into someone's driveway. That's how narrow these roads are, and it's just real dangerous. It is so dangerous. The entry, we did our own, we've had horrible accidents. I've shared the pictures of the accidents. 6 hours traffic was closed down because of a horrible accident right at the front of our community. So please take all that into consideration. I know you've heard from the rest of them, so I won't go any further, but please, for this community's sake, we asked you to. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak on this case today?
Hello.
Now, who's doing the talking?
I am Alex. This is Mia and Ledger. We all live in Hawthorne Valley. Let me get my notes pulled up because he had Cocomelon on. So I am here as a mother of 2 very active children who love to play and ride their bikes and walk our pets and go visit our other neighbors on the streets because we have no sidewalks. This leaves us walking in the streets every day. We already have to be very cautious as we live at the bottom of this very steep hill that we've been talking about. Mail trucks and visitors fly down our hill as it is. Adding large construction vehicles into the mix is a recipe for disaster. It is a huge safety risk to my children and my fellow neighbors, and a real risk that no one should be willing to take. This will be our reality from start to finish as this construction is going, and we shouldn't have to have the unspeakable happen in order to be taken seriously. We just really urge you all to relate with us and take everything that we've said into consideration.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak on this case today? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Leah Bonin. I live at 108 Hawthorne. I have to write down my notes because I get scattered. So there's one statement that sticks in my head with this whole thing. Those that want it don't live here. Those that live here, thank you, assistant, don't want it. This development will negatively affect the health and safety of everyone in both neighborhoods, our property values and quality of life. The Texas developers are going to come in, change our way of life forever, and then leave. Once the genie's out of the bottle, there's no putting it back in. Last time we were here, you guys voted 7-2 to deny the development based on safety, and you have no idea what that meant to us. But nothing has changed to make this a better idea. A judge overruling you guys does not change how dangerous our neighborhood will become. It will in no way, shape, or form help our area, county, or city. If this passes, we will be the only subdivision in Mount Juliet with the number of houses and only one entrance and exit. The safety implications of this are terrifying. No one else in the area has one entrance and exit because it doesn't make sense. So much so that you all passed that regulation in 2022 that neighborhoods of this size need 2 entrances, and now with the newest phase, it will be double the number of the 99 ordinance that you guys passed. This will not only affect our neighborhood and Central Pike. 186 houses of people, 2 cars per house. So figure 372 cars will be added to the side roads. Anybody going to 40 to go to work is going to have to take Beckwith or Posey Hill. Neither of those can be considered safe roads either. The safety of everyone in our area will be affected. We've talked about safety with WEMA as well. Back in 2022, WEMA Director Jerry Cooper did an interview with WKRN out of Nashville and said that WEMA is dangerously understaffed. That doesn't make us feel great when we know that they're going to have to come in. The additional number of houses is going to put a huge strain on first responders and their ability to get in. We have already had one very serious accident with a rollover at the beginning of our neighborhood that we could not get out. And this is only with 42 homes, 43 homes. It completely blocked. We were not able to get out. Nobody could get in. If there would have been a second emergency in the neighborhood, I don't even want to think about what would happen if that would be. But now adding that many trying to turn out is going to be terrible. Also with these houses kind of being the cluster homes, that's going to raise our crime rates as well. I talked to a Metro Nashville police officer. The cluster homes with street parking are notorious for bringing crime rates up. I also spoke to Sheriff Bryan this Tuesday, and while discussing this new phase, he added this was going to be dangerous and a bad idea. Along with Sheriff Bryan, I have also talked to 3 local TDOT employees, the county road commissioner, Jerry Hobbs, WEMA's fire chief. All of them agreed this. Everyone just says this is dangerous, it's a bad idea, it's too many cars trying to come out and in one area. I've not had one person say, yeah, that sounds good to me. The builder wants to use the 12-degree hill for their development. They want to be a separate neighborhood, but utilize our road and put our children at risk with the heavy machinery that comes along with years and years of construction, but also the everyday traffic. Everybody's already mentioned all the delivery trucks and school buses and trash, repairmen, everything that comes with it. And when it gets icy, our hill becomes impassable and we're often stuck in our neighborhood. What's going to happen with an additional 200 cars trying to get in and out of the neighborhood during that time? Just this last winter, semi-trucks were trying to use Central Pike like they always do, got stuck on the ice. We were trapped in our neighborhood for more than 12 hours. Pretty scary when you think what could have happened in an emergency if first responders needed to get to us. We also, as Lori mentioned, have to take care of the damage due to the road. She said cracks. That was a very nice word. They're already this wide. She's so kind. She calls probably monthly to see if we can get it fixed, but we have taken that expense so far to get that fixed. We don't have sidewalks, no speed bumps, no anything, so anybody who wants to live any kind of an active lifestyle are forced into the street. Our kids often ride bikes. It's kind of the old school thing where you look and there's just a pile of bikes at someone's driveway and you know that's where all the kids are. I'll be terrified to let our daughter ride her bike or walk to a neighbor's house if she wants to go play. I'll probably have to drive her, one street away because I'd be scared of her walking. Everybody else has mentioned too, our schools are already at max capacity. Adding these additional houses is going to be bad. And we understand we can't stop them from building. It's their property. All I'm asking for is another postponement until our county's infrastructure, emergency services, schools, and roads can catch up to the rapid growth. Many of you know that Central Pike is already struggling to handle all the additional traffic, semi-trucks, buses, and everything else that's going to come with it. During the last meeting, Mr. Jennings said the only reason that we could get this denied was health or safety or traffic or if it was dangerous. This is not an or situation. This is an and situation. I feel like we qualify for all of those things. Safety is our number one concern. Growth is good as long as it's done responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak on this case today?
Christian Bonin, 108 Hawthorne Valley. I've been asked to read this letter on behalf of a neighbor, Becky Cox, 119 Hawthorne Valley.
Do we need to let that happen, Mike?
You can put it in the record, you can't consider anything that's not under oath.
I mean, you could think of me a lot thinner and with blonde hair if you want.
Well, they don't have she's not here to contend if we disagree with that. So you're welcome to read it and we'll put it into the record, but we can't consider what the letter says.
Okay. I'll read it for her. Just told her I would.
Yes, sir.
All right. Becky Cox. It is said that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Our current juncture regarding additional phases of development in Hawthorne Valley reminds me of this wise saying. The proactive vision and decisions at this point could make a monumental difference in the safety and well-being of generations to come. Our family had the unfortunate instance recently of needing to rely on our brave emergency services personnel. While our situation was resolved with a best-case scenario, it did give me a different perspective of what it could have been like had our wait times been extended due to traffic volume and the lack of a secondary entrance. Emergencies happen. Time matters. I picture what it would feel like if a small, containable fire could turn into a complete home loss due to added time. I picture what medical outcomes might look different for a loved one at the first signs of a stroke or heart attack, given a short time waited versus extended wait times. I imagine how extended waiting would feel if a ball rolling from an inclined lot and into the street led a child into the path of a car, hurt and needing medical attention in order to have the strongest medical outcomes. I picture an abnormally hot and dry summer leading to area wildfires with one exit for over 200 houses. These scenarios we pray we won't experience, yet the potential for greatly diminished safety in our area is an impending reality depending on the important choices that are made now. If you haven't already, please feel invited to drive through Hawthorne Valley to experience firsthand the unique geographical variables that are leading to the emphasized safety concerns being raised by residents. Thank you for your willingness to hear and empathize with the concerns being expressed.
Thank you, sir. Do we have anyone else? Mr. Griffin, you want to speak?
Sure, I wanted to go ahead and address some of the comments that I just heard. Wilson County has no sidewalk ordinance. They're not required.
We do have a sidewalk requirement in the subdivision regulations, but the road commission takes ultimate authority over the road right away.
That's right.
So if we are going to have sidewalks, typically they fall outside of the road right away
That's correct.
and are the responsibility of the HOA.
Yep. As mentioned, there's a wet weather conveyance on site. Those are not regulated by the state or local jurisdiction. Anthony Branch is a stream. We have buffered it. We are protecting it, preserving it. One other thing, we've also granted the neighbors access to our open space facilities. We've actually preserved more pond features than what was required, non-jurisdictional features that we could have gotten rid of. But after hearing the community in the last few meetings, they like sending the kids down there and playing in that and fishing in those ponds. So we are continuing to open that up to the community. One of the gentlemen said they knew additional development was coming when he moved in 2008. This community has always been planned with one access since 2008. Now, I can say that we have 3 potential future connections to the south, to the east, and to the west. We have pursued all of those properties at length and have gotten nowhere. So we do not have a way to provide future connection, but we are setting ourselves up for the next guy, whenever they develop, to connect to those properties, to those stubs. The intersection at Central Pike with the turn lanes operates at a level of service B, A being the best, D being the worst. We are still at a very safe level. And adding those turn lanes are going to do nothing but help the community ease traffic restrictions up there, make it a safer intersection. I believe that is all. I will say one more thing. I am a proud resident of Wilson County, and I have a say too, and I think this is a good development. Thank you.
Thank you. If you already spoke, thank you. Okay. Yes, ma'am. He's the applicant.
My name is Laura Williams Markham. I am a resident in Hawthorne Valley at 103 Hawthorne Valley. I am at the very bottom of the hill. I have witnessed a lot of traffic come in and out of our subdivision at a fast pace. I've seen lots of 18-wheelers on Central Pike that really should not be there. We all know that that happens. I can't do anything to fix that. But we have had accidents that have blocked egress, And so I am a nurse, so safety is key for me. I think about safety all the time. Seconds matter in healthcare, minutes matter. And when you have a loved one who is having a heart attack, a stroke, have a laceration where they're bleeding, or you need someone there immediately, time matters. And if egress is blocked, that is a huge concern. Not only am I a resident and I'm a wife, a mom, but I'm also a caregiver. I have 2 elderly parents who live with me in an in-law suite. And so when they are trying to get in and out of the driveway, they are very slow to get in and out. That's a concern for me that, they're potentially going to get hit. And I also, with safety in mind, we've talked a lot about people getting into the subdivision and how we're going to take care of that. But I really want to think about the opposite, too. What about if there's a mass evacuation of that community and we only have one entrance? How are we all going to get out? And if there's some huge fire or some huge event that happens, how will we get out? Safety is something that we all talk about, and it's kind of, we become numb to it. We become numb to that word. But when it's your family, your loved one, safety matters. It matters to me, and I hope it matters to you. I hope that you guys can see how important it is to us that we have at least a second entrance and exit to that area. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak on this case today? Yes, sir.
Corey Jones, I live in Hawthorne Valley. I do this for a living, drive heavy trucks. And going through that neighborhood, steep hill, I know how truck drivers are going to be constantly going up and down there. And load after load, you start out watching your surroundings, but then you get focused, lose sight of what you're doing. Accidents can happen, and I just really would hate to see a kid get killed, because I've done it myself. Drove in a neighborhood, seen a ball roll out. I instantly hit my brakes. Kid was right behind it, trying to get his ball. What if that doesn't happen? I don't understand why. I mean, do they plan on getting a second entrance at all during any of the phases?
Not to my knowledge.
Why?
The initial development before Hawthorne Valley Section 1 was approved only had a single entrance.
But, so is that 2 and 3 up there right now?
That's 3.
That's just 3?
Yeah.
Is there a 4?
No.
Will there be a 4?
There are other developable tracts owned by other interests, Mr. Harkreader's interest being one of them to the south, I think.
So when they go to do another one, is that going to affect anything?
Yes, I mean, eventually, that's the whole point of the.
Then why can't it be now?
Because they don't own the property.
Well,
and
too bad.
Nor did they own the.
Then you find a way to do it, because it seems stupid to.
Respectfully, sir, nor did they own the property when the neighborhood was developed, and I've got the original preliminary plat for the Appaloosa Valley 2007 plat that predates the final plat for Phase 1 of Hawthorne Valley. And if you'll look at the layouts, and I'll pass them down for the Planning Commission, that's the preliminary plat, and that's the final plat.
Please.
And you'll notice a couple of things about the preliminary plat. One, it does not preserve the pond areas or the open space that we've worked very hard with the developer to try to get them to do. It does not, did not in any way, shape, or form, when it was approved in 2005, take into account any additional improvements on Central Pike, because effectively we've evolved over time in terms of our growth and development to start to ask for those types of things. You'll notice that the final plat that was adopted in 2007 for Phase 1 is the exact same layout as the front portion of the Appaloosa Valley subdivision, which showed 140 lots. So my point being, and I'll be the guy that has to say this, when you moved into the neighborhood, as someone stated from the neighborhood already, you knew there was additional development coming.
I did.
Well, your realtor should have told you. The plat, you should have had the plat at your closing to where you could see that there was future development. The secondary thing I'll mention is that we have done everything we can legally to try to get them to work with the state of Tennessee, not the road commission, on improvements to Central Pike. And they are going to do those with Phase 2, which should arguably improve access for the neighborhood in terms of safety. There are stub outs that are, as required back in the original preliminary plat in 2005, still shown, as well as an additional property they added, I think, in 2007, that would have provided connection to what was formerly the Sailor property to the west and goes into the back of the subdivision that Gayla Marie is on, which is also a dead-end subdivision. There is a stub out to the Harkreader property that I've already mentioned. That stub out was done in direct agreement with Mr. Harkreader, Old Man Harkreader, to abandon his easement that went across his property in return for them providing him a connection to a public road system. That public road connection is in Phase 2, which the court's overturned and is now about to start construction. Phase 3 is the remnant of their, respectfully, the original preliminary plats of Appaloosa Valley as it's evolved over time. They did revise the preliminary in 2022 for Phases 2 and 3, and that was where we tried to get them to address some of the concerns that we heard at that time from you as existing neighbors of Hawthorne Valley. We heard you loud and clear that, you know, whether or not it was trespassing, your kids and others were on that property all the time. I grew up across from Langford Farm subdivision, if you know where that is, and I used to trespass as a kid, just like I'm sure your kids do, and played and had forts and everything else. And they had a trail, you guys had an established trail system and several little stone structures that people could play fort in, and of course the pond was there and everything else. We worked with the developer to try to preserve those areas. We still have the stub outs, and yes, and we're doing the best we can given vested rights for the subdivision under state law. I wish that we had the 99 lot rule that you may or may not have heard referred to before the preliminary plat was approved, maybe, but we did not have it, and they do have vested rights under state law that says they do not have to have the secondary entrance because we did require that, or we adopted that requirement after their approvals. Frankly, they had vesting rights back to 2005 or 2007 because they had continued to develop, as is evidenced by Phase 1 of the development. But I don't wish anybody in the room ill will. I have children too. I understand, and I understand the concerns you have, and I do not discount them. But I do think that we're doing the best we can with this subdivision in light of what we have on the record in terms of subdivision regulations and zoning regulations and road commission standards, and trying to get them to work with you to make improvements to the state route, which is your primary entrance.
Thing is, I do this every day. I go into these neighborhoods, clear trees. It's, you know, I get it. They're going to build. It's their deal to do. But rarely do I ever go into a neighborhood where it only has one entrance. They always either have a construction entrance or they have two so that you can come in. I mean, I just think it's dumb to have all that heavy equipment running in and out of that neighborhood. And with that steep hill, whether you're coming or going, you're still going down that steep hill, and then you go back up the other side. I don't care what you guys say. You can put that stupid turn lane in. It doesn't matter. You still got a curve on one side, curve on the other side, a dip. You can't see nobody. You want to straighten that road? Then put your turn lane in.
Well, we have what we have in front of us, sir, and that's what we have to make decisions.
When somebody dies, who we come after?
Well, I agree I hear you very clearly, but I could make a very real argument that this subdivision was a bad idea to start with.
Exactly.
I could make that a very real argument that it was a bad idea to start with. And there were people, I wasn't here then, who were against this subdivision. They didn't want more traffic on Central Pike. I lived on Central Pike. I live in Glayville. I've been there all my life. I get it. That was more for sledding than it was for anything when I was a kid. But we do have to deal with what's in front of us right now. And a court has held, Tommy, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I know it ruled on Phase 2. Can you tell me if
What they overturned was
that, when we rejected Phase 2, they sued us, and the court held that we were wrong, and they approved it.
And like I said, it's not the
Well, and
development part
that is
about
an
it.
option, I guess.
It's just, you can't tell me that there's not a way that they can come up with something to at least get the construction part of it.
I can't tell you that. The court can. We don't have that authority to override the court. We don't.
But I just wish that they would come out, look at it.
I've been in
see
this
the entrance, see the Central Pike spot that I'm talking about, and it's a nightmare now. I just can't imagine with
And certainly,
300 plus
y'all would have a
cars.
right to try to do that, but we don't have the authority to tell y'all to do that or them to do that. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
You gonna say something?
I can tell you what the court said.
Come on.
If you would, please.
I'll read it to you word for word. The Planning Commission is ordered to honor the development standards for Hawthorne Valley Phases 2 and 3 at the time the preliminary plat of Hawthorne Valley Phases 2 and 3 were approved by the Planning Commission on May 20, 2022. That's the court's order.
Okay.
Phases 2 and 3.
Phases 2 and 3. Okay. Well, I think it is back on the agenda now because it has to go through the process of,
No, the Phase 3 final, Phase 2 has already been.
Phase 2, I understand, but
And they've already gotten their road and drainage plans approved, and they're starting construction.
Correct, but-
Phase 3, they've not recorded yet, and they have to get a final plat approval to do so.
but they still have to do the road drainage plans in accordance with, no different than they did with Phase 2,
Yeah.
if they develop.
I believe that they're one and the same, are they not? It's all comprehensive for the preliminary plat.
Okay, I didn't realize. Okay. Do we have anyone else wishing to speak on this case today? No. Thank you. I understand. Yes, sir.
I'm Jeff Reed. I'm an attorney for LGI, who's the developer of this property. I appreciate you letting me talk to you this morning. And let me first say, for the neighbors, LGI is going to go out of its way to make sure that any construction traffic that comes in the neighborhood will be done in a safe manner. And they've even... So,
please, we let y'all speak. Let him speak.
So LGI wants to be a good neighbor to the existing homeowners, and they will go out of their way to do that. They're committed to doing that. They also have given strict instructions to their contractors to adhere to a 15-mile-per-hour speed limit for construction traffic coming in and out of that neighborhood. So we think that will help mitigate any risk of danger for anyone in the neighborhood. I myself have twin daughters who are 6 years old. I understand the concerns with kids playing in the yard, and we're going to make sure that LGI does everything possible to make sure their construction traffic is as safe as possible and does not pose a risk to the neighbors in that neighborhood. So you have LGI's commitment on that. LGI has already gone above and beyond what they're required to do legally to try to accommodate the neighbors in the neighborhood. You know, we've committed to put all basically brick homes in the new sections that are coming in, which we were not required to do by law, but we agreed for the houses to be brick, stone, or hardy plank, or some combination thereof. We've also agreed to allow them to use their common areas in the new sections of Hawthorne Valley, so their kids can play around the pond if they choose to, play in the common areas and have access to that as well. And we even agreed, even though legally we're not required to make an improvement on Central Pike, we agreed to make those improvements on Central Pike to be a good neighbor to the existing homeowners out there. So that was something all that LGI did not legally have to do, but they chose to do it to be a good neighbor to the existing homeowners out there. So they want their project to be successful out there. And one of the things with respect to a successful project is having the existing neighbors be cordial and friendly with the new people moving in the neighborhood. And we want that to happen. We want the new people who are moving to this neighborhood to be friends with the people in the existing neighborhood. So that helps us financially, and it helps everyone get along better in the neighborhood, and it helps everyone's quality of life in the neighborhood. So LGI is committed to try to make sure this project is built in the most safe manner as possible. It will stage its equipment well off the existing roads that are currently there, so deep into its own property. It will put these speed restrictions on construction traffic coming into the neighborhood. And already the plans that have been approved by TDOT on Central Pike will make that intersection with Central Pike safer once this project is done than it is today. So a lot of the issues that are being raised with respect to concerns on Central Pike will partially be mitigated and be helped by the improvements that are being made to Central Pike that we're agreeing to do. You know, when the preliminary plat came before this body as a group and was approved, you approved it on the condition that LGI go back and try to get a turn lane added to Central Pike. So that whole process to get that engineered and designed and approved took almost a year through TDOT. But they hired the engineers, they spent the money, they did it, and they got approval from TDOT for the improvements on Central Pike. So once the additional turn lanes on Central Pike are put in, they're going to be better. That's going to be a safer intersection than it is now out there. So the other thing I would say is this property out there, the adjoining properties will eventually develop. There's no doubt at some point those adjoining properties will develop. LGI has provided multiple cul-de-sacs and connections to those adjoining tracks. So over time, there will be additional second entrances to this area, and third entrances, and fourth entrances as the properties develop it around it. It takes time, you know. But as we stand here today, there's only one entrance today to Hawthorne Valley. And all these homeowners who bought houses in there today bought their houses with only one entrance for Hawthorne Valley. The existing plats that are down, as Mr. Bashir noted, all show one entrance for this subdivision from day one, when this was done years ago. And it showed future development on those plats. So when all these people bought their homes, at least from a title standpoint, there was public record that there was only one ingress and egress to this neighborhood, and there was future development coming. So that was something that was all public record in the registrar's office for anyone to look at when their house was purchased. So I understand people do not want change. They don't want, you know, new development coming in around them. But, you know, people have the right to develop their property, and people have ownership rights if they own property too, just as these homeowners have rights with respect to their property. And you know, as this went to court, it was kind of noted, you know, that when, you know, and you guys as a planning commission sit as a quasi-judicial body. So your decisions cannot be arbitrary. You can't just say, well, we just don't like this deal. We don't think it's a good idea, so we're not going to approve it. There has to be standards that you apply, just like the law gives you standards to apply to the situations that come before you. And that's what the court kind of honed in on. So, because when this body approved the preliminary plat, back in 2022, it approved the preliminary plat based on a turn lane being added on Central Pike. LGI went back and did what you required it to do as a condition of preliminary plat approval. So it satisfied that requirement. It also satisfied all the other requirements in your subdivision regulations. And all other, you got TDEC approval, TDOT approval, you got road commission approval, you got wastewater approval. So all the normal approvals that you would have to have for a subdivision have been met. So according to your subdivision regulations, which is your standard that you have to adopt and abide by as a quasi-judicial body, all those requirements have been met. And that's why the court ruled with respect to Phase 2, really the Planning Commission had to approve Phase 2 because it met all the requirements of your subdivision regulations and met the conditions of preliminary plat approval. Usually, when the final plats come to you as a planning commission body, and my law firm, we represent planning commissions. We represent Rutherford County Planning Commission. So we deal with the same issues, and so usually we're on your side of the fence on these issues rather than the developer side. But when these final plats come to you, really the standard that the planning commission is supposed to adopt is, well, does this meet the conditions of the preliminary plat? Have they done what they said they would do in the preliminary plat? Does it meet the other conditions of our subdivision regulations? And if it does, then from a legal standpoint, you are required as a quasi-judicial body to approve it. So you can't arbitrarily say, well, I don't think that's a good idea, I don't like the hill there, or, there has to be standards that you apply. So in this case, respectfully, we think LGI, by all the evidence that you have before you, they've met the conditions of preliminary plat approval. They've met all the requirements of your subdivision regulations. So I think, the way this comes before you is you as a body really are compelled to approve it at this point. If you don't approve it, you really are acting, as the court noted, illegally or arbitrarily at that point. And if you act illegally or arbitrarily, there's kind of, you kind of are exposing the county to damages, which, for a development of this size is millions of dollars of damages if you act illegally. And I understand from Planning Commission, you want to do what's right and what your obligations are as a body. In this case, the way this comes before you, you really are, there's no basis to not approve this subdivision. We understand the concerns the homeowners have raised. LGI is committed to being a good neighbor to those neighbors and will go out of their way to make sure construction traffic is handled in a safe manner and make sure equipment is handled in a safe manner and do everything they think. The last thing they want to happen is any child get hurt out there because of this traffic. That's something they don't want to happen. We all have kids, and we don't want that to happen. So we share that concern with the neighbors, and we'll go out of our way to make sure that does not happen. So I appreciate your time today and appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I think I'll be about finished with any comments I've got unless you've got questions. But one thing I did want to mention that further hems the Planning Commission in is the County Powers Relief Act and vesting rights. I think it's called the County Powers Relief Act and vesting rights that were passed through the state legislature. And what that does, in short, if I can just simplify it down, is a developer, if he gets a preliminary master plan, preliminary plat, a final plat, any type of development plan approved, and it particularly also if it's multi-phase, which this was, they have up to 15 years of protection against any changes we make to our local development regulations. So that kind of gets back to this whole thing about the timing on the 99 lot requirement. Respectfully, they could arguably, because they'd already started development with the Hawthorne Valley Phase 1, had vesting clear back to 2005, regardless of the 15 years. But secondly, in spite of that, if you just took the preliminary date of May of 22, when Hawthorne Valley's preliminary plat got adopted, or got approved, not adopted, got approved, we did not have that 99 lot provision requiring the secondary entrance at that time. We were discussing it, and this is for the benefit of the public. There are other neighborhoods that I can count off, Berkshire Ridge, Stonebrook Falls, other neighborhoods, Beacon Hill Condominium Complex, others that have effectively one entrance in and out of the neighborhood. So there are examples across the county whereby you've got developments that had one entrance and they've actually endured not only future development making use of that singular entrance because of future phases, much like what you're experiencing in Hawthorne Valley, but also additions to the property that still only have one entrance through additional neighborhoods.
We had a gentleman who hadn't had an opportunity to speak yet. If you would, please come forward and state your name, please. I'm sorry. If you could ask Tom, yes. You can ask the question.
What is
I'm sorry?
It was something their lawyer had said.
No.
He had mentioned something that you guys have to approve things based on everything meeting the requirements and everything, but last time we were here, Mr. Jennings said that another reason, you guys can't deny it based on safety, traffic, health, and it being dangerous. So one lawyer saying it needs this, another lawyer saying it can't be denied because of this. So I was wanting clarification.
And I'll address that. I did say that when I was here and we defended this lawsuit, but again, I'll come back and tell you what the judge ordered. And I'll tell you further, something that you're not going to like to hear, but it's in the order, and that is There has to be material evidence to support the planning commission's decision, not just opinions, speculations, and fears that are in existence every time a subdivision is built. So that takes out a lot of things.
We've had accidents, and the accident report from the sheriff.
Ma'am, I've got a court order here that I've got to
Oh,
instruct
God,
my
he's taking
client.
notes.
That, you know, it's against us.
Please, come forward and
I
state your...
have to agree with it, okay?
Hello, my name's Daniel Johnson. I live at 500 Archwood Valley. We've been there 10 years, right on the corner. The only house on Archwood Valley. I'm a husband. I have 4 kids. I don't know if I need to bring him up to say his name or not. He's back there talking. That's William. That's my youngest. I have 3 other kids. We live on the corner where all this construction traffic's going through. And while I'm not going to stand up here and like threaten any sort of like legal action or county damages or anything like that, I live on that corner out there, so it affects my whole life. It affects my children's life. It affects everything, okay? When I was growing up, one of my favorite things to do, throw baseball with my dad. I've got another boy, we do the same thing. 2 girls, we play in the yard. That one over there, with all that construction, if you think I'm gonna take him out, I'm not. I'm not. It's gonna change his life. It's gonna change his life. I live in Wilson County. I don't know how many of these people live in Wilson County. I know one guy said he did. There's companies from Texas, that's fine. The 2008 plan, was that for all of the similar houses that were?
It was a preliminary plat for your neighborhood, inclusive of the phase that ultimately got final platted.
Okay. Do we know how
It was
many?
approximately 140 lots.
140 lots.
Yeah.
And how many
For
look
preliminary plat.
with all of?
156 in these 2 phases.
Okay.
Because they did add property in a revised preliminary in
Okay, so
2007.
42, so we're looking about
Yeah.
200-ish
Yeah.
overall as opposed to 140.
200 being the original.
Yeah. So when we moved in, we knew there would be stuff back there. So this isn't like a surprise or anything. I just know that where our house is, that's where all that traffic's going to go. They can say they're going to stage their stuff in the back, but if you think at the end of the day, a guy that's been working is just going to be like, I'm going to drive 15 miles an hour through this neighborhood, it is insane to think that. I don't know if any of these people are going to be here to monitor that traffic or anything like that. Sheriff's Department's already overdone. I have some unique experience to where I've actually worked as a law enforcement officer and worked accidents in these neighborhoods, and I have seen the destruction that they can cause firsthand. So I can testify to any of that if you need to from my firsthand account, because it's not just a fear, it's things that I have seen in other counties. So I just want you all to take that into account, and I'd be remiss to come here and not speak my mind. So appreciate y'all listening to me.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
At this time, we'll close the public comment section of this. I'm sorry, you haven't spoke yet, correct? Okay, I didn't know you were there. I'm sorry.
That didn't work.
You done well.
I'm on steroids, so I'm a little aggressive because of cancer. But anyway, my name is Jeremy Stoner. I live at 121 Hawthorne Valley. We've been there for 15 years. There were like 3 houses when we built. It seems like some people are cherry picking historical records, like the original plat. It was owned by a different company.
Correct.
Phase 1. So I'm wondering, well, I'm not asking a question. All I'm going to do is say, if there's any way possible, I know we can't stop development. That's not what we're trying to do. We would like the entire phases 1 through 3 to be original, as they were originally platted and planned. Brick, as if that was an upgrade. That's the way it was originally planned. Things changed, but they cherry-picked the things that changed. I'm going to end like this. If there's any way we can pause phase 3 until construction entrance from all these other future roads happens, please let us know. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Now we'll close the public comments section, and I will ask for any questions from our board.
You know you're looking over here.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman. I have now 6 pages of notes, just like the other one.
Let's limit those to questions as best we can.
We are, and they are this, based on comments from what's here, not the letter, as you stated.
Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, as I try to wax philosophically for some positive, some negative, people want the American dream in your neighborhood just like you're experiencing it. That's the reason they want to move there. That being stated, you realize for that last comment that we have no control over telling an owner, developer, that they can build this, they got to have this color, they got to have pink siding, whatever. That's not this purview, and we don't have that. We don't have the law. My philosophical waxing is going to be laws we have to follow, and we refer to our attorney and the expertise of my fellow board members. You decide that. You said something in this, and I've got the lady's name. She said, you need to fix the roads. We don't fix roads. That's the commissioner. We don't put them in. And part of the sidewalks and the things is HOA responsibility. That's been stated too. So just as a part of that, reach out to your road commissioners, but let's go even deeper. Who makes these decisions? The legislators that we elect. I'm part of we. That when you go up and put this guy in office and they decide that it's 99 homes and there's a break point of 2022, and guess who's going to stand on that? Developers and others. We put them in office. We're not elected officials. We're picked by expertise. We're picked by experience to serve with our, and I'll tell you, if they were all like our mayor, right here that sits with us, there wouldn't be a discussion. And I got a few common sense points with these questions that were bravely presented to us. One was about the dynamite. If they use proper matting for the dynamite, you should not experience a problem. If you do, yes, there are sensors that you can put in, seismic sensors that will tell you, and then you have recourse, just as an added benefit of fun. I like to speak to common sense, so I'm going to switch all over after making those statements, okay? It's not law yet, but obviously we've forgotten some common sense. To me, if you had 98 homes, and the minute it rolls to 99, legislation takes over for the 99. You got to have a second entrance. You got to have all of the amenities, because to come in and put these things in 10, 12 at a time to fall under that auspice should not be. Who decides that? Not this board. Legislators that you put in office. We are limited by, the judges have already ruled against us. Was it common sense? Yes. I am 100% safety minded, 100%. My kids are grown, but I got grandbabies. I don't want them to be hurt by traffic or anything else. But it's not just your neighborhood. It's all over Wilson County. So why are we on this board? You can figure that out for yourself. We all know our reasons. I think that common sense, I know that Tom is limited by what he can recommend. You've witnessed accidents. You've named accidents, safety, speeding, no sidewalks. They try to be a good neighbor, LGI. I don't think they're bad people. But what they're trying to do is be profitable for their owners, but also the people that want to move in beside you. Could be me, a guy like me that says, I want to be your neighbor. Now, the single entrance is an issue. The construction entrance is an issue. I think it is a safety issue. But they don't allow us to make laws up here or tell those legislators, this is what we're going to do. Because all of Tom's information goes straight up to Nashville, and then they make decisions. So voting is important in who you put in office, okay? That's all I'll say about it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any other questions or statements from our board?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Jewell.
My colleague is correct in some of what he says. We must follow the rules and regulations. We're not rule makers here. We're not dodging our responsibilities. We're following the way we are prescribed and established. And that includes following the interpretation of those laws that come through court action. There are two sides here. The developer has rights. The public has rights. Tom, based on our regulations that are on the books, based on the lawsuits that have been drawn and opinions given, do you feel like these folks have met the requirements for an approval that you have given?
I believe they have met the prescriptive requirements of our development regulations.
In that case, Mr. Chairman, I will make a motion that we approve this final
Based on staff recommendations.
based on staff recommendations.
We have a motion from Mr. Jewell to approve based on staff recommendations. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Mr. Turner. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. And those opposed?
No.
No. That motion will carry 8-2.
Who said second? No.
I'm sorry,
Two noes?
me and Mr. Renfro. Okay. Thank you.
You crazy.
Our next, do you need a break, Ms. Teresa? Okay. Our next case will be the final for Saddle Ridge Place, Section 3.
You did 2 minutes.
This is at the corner, or this is near Needmore Road and Saddle Ridge Drive.
Tom, let's take a couple of minutes, let the room clear so we can hear a little better, please.
I'm up for a break.
No, this is an easy. It's okay.
Does that sound right to you?
I like that.
You're fine, it's okay.
But we said if we go, well, that up, I guess we're going to pass.
Mr. Chair, are you ready, or are we taking a break?
We are, if you want to, Tom, let's move forward.
Okay. Final plat for Saddle Ridge Place, Section 3, near Needmore Road and Saddle Ridge Drive, consisting of 9 lots, and references map 50, parcel 180.03. With minor technical corrections, staff can recommend approval.
Do we have anyone here to represent this case today? Yes, sir.
Tom Clemens with Engineering Group Clemens and Associates, representing the developer owner, just here to answer any questions from the commission.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else here wishing to speak on this case today? Do we have any questions from our board? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. Subject to staff recommendation.
We have a motion from Mr. Ash to approve, subject to staff recommendations, a second by Mr. Thompson.
Okay.
We had about 4, I'm sorry. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion will carry considerably easier.
You had to endure it all.
Tom, we're now ready for plats for affirmation.
Mr. Chairman, the plats for affirmation include re-subdivision of the Mary Owens property, lots 3 and 4, at 4114 Chicken Road, consisting of 2 lots and references map 113, parcel 36.02, 36.03. Subdivision of the Jonathan Mark Gray and Anita Underwood Gray property, lots 7 and 8, consisting of 2 lots at 9290 Highway 109 North and references map 13, parcel 5. A re-subdivision of the Dunaway Farm, lot 28, consisting of 1 lot on Dunaway Road and references map 102, parcel 35.37. And a subdivision of the Russell Harlan Poston property consisting of 1 lot on Trousdale Ferry Pike and referenced as map 65, parcel 19.
Okay. Anyone here wishing to speak on any of these cases? Any questions from our board? Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion from Ms. Weathers to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Renfro, or I'm sorry, Mr. Turner. All those in favor vote aye. Aye. Those opposed? That motion will carry. We will open the floor up for public comment at this point. State law requires us to give people an opportunity to talk to us at each one of these meetings. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to us about anything? Seeing none, I will ask Tom, do you have anything else we need to talk about, sir?
Thank you for your patience and endurance today, and it's not getting any easier.
It's not. We will stand adjourned. Thank you.